Welcome to the Scottish Watches podcast. This is the episode that we look forward to once per year, where we bring on a couple of friends from the Metropolitan Police Flying Squad. They have been on numerous times before, but it's always good to find out a little bit about what's happening in the world of watch crime so we can stay safe. So when we're out and about enjoying our timepieces, we don't have to worry so much about them being extracted from the wrist and put on the open market or the black market. And also, if you're buying and selling watches, we want to make sure that we are safe and sound so we don't get ripped off, we're not followed home. There are many things that maybe you've heard in the past that you want to be reminded of, but it's always good for a bit of a recap, especially when we've got the longer nights, people are out more often than not. Maybe they're having a little drink, they're wearing short sleeve shirts, and their watches are on display. So we're going to talk about all the ways to stay safe and sound this summer. And I want to tell you to check the show notes, click the link in your podcast player. If you're watching us on YouTube, that link will be in the description below. It takes you to our website, all the information on what we're talking about. There might be some reports, there might be some articles from news websites, there might be some videos from the Met Police themselves, some hints and tips on how to stay safe. So we fully recommend you do that. And the next thing to do is the wrist check. And I don't know who to pick. We'll pick Kev because he didn't mess up the recording this time. He was a good boy. And you can tell us what you've got on the wrist today.
Hi Ricky, tonight I am wearing my Mission to Neptune Moonswatch and my new black and blue strap tonight, so that's what I'm wearing.
Fantastic, and then we'll go across and we'll find out what Thomas has got on the wrist.
I haven't got anything for astronauts, but I've got something that was made for pilots. So I've got a Bremont MB2 made in collaboration with Martin Baker. And this is one of those watches that's been tested for pilots when they eject from their planes, which is why they collaborated with Martin Baker, who make the ejector seats. So this is a good watch for me for work because it's quite robust. And if it can survive ejection from a plane, I'm sure it can survive the streets of London.
Fantastic. And I'm wearing a watch that, well, it's not expensive, but there's a good reason for that. I'm wearing my gym watch. And the reason I'm wearing this one is because it's ridiculous. It's huge. It's a mammoth, but it's not a G-Shock. It's an inexpensive, maybe £20-30 item. Massive display. So as I age on in years, I'll still be able to record the times between sets, make sure that I'm not overdoing things when I'm actually in the gym, doing all those reps. And the reason I've worn this today is because I have a philosophy. I'm going to find out if this is correct or not. That if you wear an obtuse watch, something that stands out and somebody looks at it and goes, that's hideous, that's a piece of plastic, that's cheap and inexpensive, they won't wonder what's up your sleeve. They won't wonder if perhaps you are wearing something that's worth nicking. This will actually throw people away. They'll look the other direction. And what is it they say in a zombie apocalypse? It's the guy who runs the slowest that gets caught.
Well, that's a very readable watch. I like that.
Even with my terrible eyesight as I'm getting older, I can definitely see exactly what the time is. And it's time to find out how to protect people. People that listen to this show, people that watch us on YouTube, people that go to our website, follow us on social media, they love watches first and foremost. It's a hobby, it's a passion, it's an enthusiast community. And the thing that we hate the most is when we hear that somebody has been deprived of something they've saved up for. It's a possession that they've longed for a long time. They've got into their collection. It might have been bought for them. It might commemorate a significant achievement in life, a marriage, whatever it is. And then it goes away. And it's not the monetary value that stings, it's the fact that a piece of heritage, something that could be an heirloom, it could be passed down to a future generation, goes walkies. So we like to bring you guys on, not to repeat the same mantra, although repetition is a good way of people learning, and especially if they've not heard from you in about a year, it's a good refresher course. But we want to find out what the new things are happening, the new things to avoid, the scams, the frauds, all those things out there that can catch people, because the criminals are the ones that do this day in, day out. They're the experts. If you're selling and buying watches once a year, once every couple of years, you can come a cropper.
The current trends we've got just now, Ricky, we had a spate a while ago where we were getting a lot of watches that people were changing the movement and bezel to make it look as if they were obviously the real deal. And we had quite a spate of that. And there was like a little team going around doing the same trick. And it was generally with the Rolex, the Hulks, and the Starbucks, the ones that were quite distinctive. We had that for a while, and they seemed to fool not only members of the public, but they fooled quite a lot of traders as well. And a lot of people got caught out with that for a while. But that seems to have slowed down now. I think at the moment we're finding, because there's a bit of cooling down in the market with people jumping in to buy watches at the speed they were, people are taking a bit more time. They're doing a little bit more due diligence. I think that's happening more now than it has been. because we're not getting as many reports of that sort of scams. If anything, it's more distraction theft when people are going in, maybe 2, 3 at a time, maybe husband and wife teams or couples and a friend, almost distracting like jewelers. A lot of them in pawnbrokers and things where they get a lot of pieces out and then somebody will turn their back and then a slight little slip, or they'll swap over a piece. That is what has been happening recently. But other scams that we've had before seem to be sort of like calming down a bit just now, which is good to report.
Yeah, I mean, as Kev's touched on there, first of all, thanks very much for having us back. I know we're on sort of maybe once a year, and certainly some of the stuff we'll be saying will be repetition of what we've said before, but it's important to get the message out. And I think you've got us on at the right time. It's July, the tennis has started, people are out, people are drinking in the pubs, and of course people are wearing their short sleeve t-shirts, not their winter jackets. For people who are into watches, they're on show more. So when I say people into watches, there's the people that collect them and wear them, and then there's the thieves that are out there looking for them. So this is the peak time of year for them, and the bars and clubs of London in the daytime when it's bright and sunny and they're out and they're on show and there's sort of al fresco dining going on, you know, people can be quite vulnerable if they've got luxury watches on display. And then, of course, as you go into the mornings and, you know, the late evenings and the early mornings and people are coming out of nightclubs and they might have had a few drinks as well, a little bit less aware of their surroundings, that's another time when people are getting targeted. So definitely good to get this message out now and just remind people, look, it's sunny, it's nice, people are out, people want to enjoy themselves, and let's be honest, people want to show off and enjoy their watches as well. But again, as we always say, just think of your environment and select the right watch for the occasion. You know, you don't always have to have the high value one on. I think you've summed that up perfectly with the one that you've chose to wear today. It tells you the time, and you know, every watch has a good purpose. So think when you're wearing your watch, what is the purpose of it that day? And yeah, choose accordingly.
Makes sense. And I have got a little trip planned away in a couple of weeks' time, and I'll not be taking well, I'm going to be ending up in Barcelona. So that tells a story in itself. The memes on Instagram tell me I shouldn't wear an expensive watch across there at this moment in time. So yes, it'll be something hideous like this that will make people run in the opposite direction. But people have been running in the opposite direction down in London. We've seen some reports, even in the last couple of weeks in the watch press, that the Rolex rippers have moved on to different brands. What's the inside scoop there?
Well, it's true what you've heard about and what you've seen. The Rolexes, the prices have come down. Look, they're still holding them in still good money, but like compared to 18 months, 2 years ago, when the prices went rocketing, they were getting huge amounts. They're obviously not getting the same money when they go to whoever they're offloading the watches to. So they're like not the same. Look, it's not worth it. So there has been a shift into the 2-3 top end brands, your Pateks, your Richard Mille, and your APs. Although that is the case, I would like to emphasize, especially in London, it's not as frequent as what the Rolex watch thefts were, because there's only a certain amount of people wear those, because obviously we know the prices. But what's really good to see is I think the message has definitely gone out, because we've been working quite a lot in central London recently, and there is a huge turn in a lot of the people, especially at this time of year, that come over from the Middle East, that come over to London because of the heat over there. Whereas before, there was a big sway of the thieves targeting those people because they knew they were obviously taking their wealthy cars over, wearing their jewelry, and they became targets. They really have changed their way of thinking, and that when you see people out and about, when you're walking around, they're wearing swatches like ours, they're wearing like your Apple phone watches, they're really toning down. So that has become good. So the high-end ones, yes, they're happening, but they are on a lower end basis compared to the volume we used to get with Rolex. And that is all down to the market price just now, which is good to read. And it seems to be that it's a different type of criminal that's targeting that now. We're finding we're getting criminals coming into London from abroad to maybe look at this for a short period of time, commit a few offences, and then go. It seems to be there's almost like a tourist travel of thieves coming in and out of the country to do that. So there has been a huge change and targeting of specific brands.
I think obviously in central London, a lot of tourists historically have come into London. Of course, that'll always go on. But with changes the government have made to taxes and, you know, what countries are taxed, what amounts here, things like that, it has changed the nature of who's coming over, what groups. You know, people are choosing different holiday destinations for sort of political reasons. So with watches, like it's a business for your authorized dealers and your retailers, it's also a business for these thieves. So whatever the watch that we all would want in the watch world of collectors and people that like watches, it's the same for the thieves, because it's supply and demand at the end of the day. So the rarer ones or the more sought after ones are the ones that they can sell on and make the money on. So, but you know, these people know the watch market as well as you and I, and you know, they steal accordingly.
So remember last year when you were on, you told us a similar story that seems to have continued, and that is it's almost tourism for theft. People would come into the country, steal watches, pass them off and be out of the country before prosecutions, or you could even get a hold of people or get descriptions out. It's a shame that's kind of continued, and I understand what you mean about folks coming across from maybe Dubai that stay there where watch crime doesn't really exist. I've seen Instagram videos where somebody has left a Patek, gone for lunch, come back, and it's still sitting in the same place. And if you've got the mentality of not having to worry about that, like back in the day, people didn't used to lock their doors. Nowadays, everybody should lock their doors. But if you're coming across and suddenly you're a target, you're spotted, that can be an issue. But we've also seen news reports of some of the really good undercover work you guys have done. I know some things you can talk about, maybe there are cases that have passed, and there are things you can't discuss because they're ongoing investigations. But what of the things that you guys have highlighted you've been doing out on the street to curtail and catch these crims?
Well, I think there's definitely been, especially in central London, there's been a huge onus put on to put in higher uniform patrols out, so there's a bit more high visibility in these areas at these specific times. So always treat it like it's like rush hour for the tube. The busier it is, the more people you need on to help get people in and off the trains. So they put there's more officers out patrolling in the areas that we know where the crimes are taking place in central London. So we all know there's about 3 or 4 main areas. There's definitely been both covert and overt operations ran, and a lot more staff put in. So there has been a big decrease. Look, you're always going to get something, because whereas before, the sort of crime type you got, a victim would be like seen because they were wearing it, followed very quickly and snatch and run. But a lot of the criminals now, like, it's in every city. We all have the Lime bikes, the Boris bikes or whatever. The criminals are going out on that and cycling around, making themselves look as blending into the background as everybody else, and then as if they're not really a threat to anyone, spotting and then coming back, grabbing, and off they go. Like what you see people on the bikes stealing phones. There's a lot of that as well. So there's been more high patrols. There's been definitely more operations ran, which have been successful, and there are still a lot of current operations running just now, which hopefully will be successful during this summer period, Ricky.
I just want to pick up on something Kev said there about the Lime bikes and the clothing that these thieves wear. Lime bikes are very handy, aren't they? They're not a vehicle, you know, assigned to that person. They're not a car with a registration. So they're very useful. And in sort of high pedestrian areas, you can still be on a bike. So you're quicker than the person you're robbing, and you're away on that bike, and you can dump that bike. You don't need to sort of hide it, keep hold of it. You know, that is a useful tool for them, as well as being useful for tourists and, you know, people in London alike. But criminals have really sort of latched on to using those. And then the other thing, as Kev said, is the way that these criminals dress. I think, you know, if you haven't seen a robbery, you don't know a lot about watch robberies, you might picture that the thief is going to be scruffily dressed and just, you know, it's the first time they've gone for that watch because they've seen it there and then. You've got to remember, these people are organised criminals that are planning this, working in groups, working as teams. And quite often the person they're robbing with their £12,000 watch on, they've probably got more expensive clothes on than the person they're robbing, because they've dressed to fit in to be the part. They don't look out of place there. So I think when you're seeing it for the first time and you're a tourist in a new country, it is very hard to spot them. And I think it's really good to get the awareness out there from maybe through this podcast that these people will be really smartly dressed. They'll look the part. They might even have a nice looking watch on themselves. So you wouldn't be massively suspicious of them until you know how they operate. So it'd be really good if all your listeners would just, when they are out, think what a watch criminal might look like now. Of course, they all look different, but there is a type. Would you agree, Kev?
Yeah, definitely. As Tom said, they don't look scruffy. They are in really nice areas in central London, so you don't want to stand out, because if you stand out, there's lots of security outside bars and restaurants, and lots of chauffeurs and people that are security for people that are being taken out and about in London, and they would be very mindful if they saw somebody that they thought looked they look completely out of place. So they do blend in very well. It's, as Tom said, this is organised crime. Like, watch theft isn't just something that, I'm just going to get up today, I'm going to see if I can find a watch. These people know where to go. They know who to look for. They know when to look for people coming in and out of cabs, going in and out of bars and restaurants, nice shops, people that are enjoying themselves with their guard down. So that's when they strike and pounce. So it is extremely organised, and not only them that are out there physically grabbing the watch, they have people out spotting and finding out where's busy. Come on, it's almost like, come on down to this area. There's somebody here. I've got one for you. And they'll feed somebody in. So that's the way they operate, on a very slick sort of way. And this is what we've got to target as well. So it's difficult for people to think, oh, I'm going to pick one out straight away, because they blend in very well.
I looked at a crime last week, and there's a watch robbery. And the two thieves that had robbed this guy about sort of midnight, they'd actually been in the establishment, in the restaurant and bar, for 3 or 4 hours beforehand. They were the life and soul of the party. They were bragging that they were security and bodyguards. They were telling their story. They're very smartly dressed. They were being quite annoying to a lot of people. They were really noticed. But it didn't stop them 3 hours later going out and robbing that person. So they will put that much effort. If the watch is right, they will stay there the night and they will get that watch. So don't think, oh, the person's on CCTV, they've spoke to me, they've introduced themselves, that is going to rule them out of being able to rob you. This is how organised they are.
Lots of points there. I'm going to try and remember them with my terrible memory. The first thing is, always be aware of your surroundings and be aware of other people. Don't trust anybody because you don't know who that person is. When someone comes to scam you out of something, they'll dress in their best. If you've ever watched a movie, the guy that walks into the bank wearing the suit never gets the attention before he pulls out the machine gun. So it's that kind of way, and blending in, acting like the life and soul of a party, and then turning around and taking it off you. That is something that I didn't really think about myself. So that's one point. One of the other things I want to ask quite early on in the show is, if you're doing crime prevention, say you were speaking to a group of folks, what would you say are the top 3, the top 5 things that they should constantly bear in mind, more so as we come into summer, but a general kind of basis for them as well?
I would say always be mindful where you are. Always look before you go somewhere. So when you get out of the tube, you get out of a taxi, or you're going to go into place, just have a look around, make sure that there's nothing there that you don't want to get out and walk into something. Be prepared to cover, or if you are wearing something, be mindful, keep it unsighted, really, if you don't feel comfortable. Try and be somewhere with someone, to meet someone at that time when you're coming out of somewhere, so that there's 2 of you there, so people are less likely to maybe try something if there's more than one. And I suppose it's just a case of, I think Tom and both you said it earlier on, wear the right piece for the right place, the right occasion. You don't want to put on something too much. Just if you're just going to meet somebody for a coffee or something, you don't need it. You just put on one of your basic things. Have the right thing on for the right place at the right time with the right people when you're safe, is what I would say.
Yeah, I remember one of the previous times you guys were on, one of the mentions was people having their gym lockers broken into because they would wear a nice watch, leave it in the locker, put a piece of shit on like I've just done, go to the locker later on and the £2 padlock had been pinged off.
That used to be the big thing, wasn't it, Tom? We don't seem to hear as much of that recently, do we? That's gone down quite a bit. The gym thing.
So many watches were stolen from lockers. I think gyms had to improve the quality of their lockers because I know a lot of them had like master keys and, it was more to keep people's towels in and flip-flops. It wasn't really about protecting their watches. And then depending on where their gym is and who's using it, I think they've had to up their security because, people were trying to claim on their insurance and blaming them if their cameras weren't working. So I think there has been an improvement in that. And again, things like this, awareness as well. Maybe people keep that watch on now while they're working out, rather than leave it in the locker, or just don't take the watch to the gym at all. I know several people it's happened to, and it's quite distressing, quite sentimental pieces they lost. And I know someone that's still desperate to get one back from about 10 years ago, and keeps checking all the places, but I don't think it's going to happen, not for a long time. So don't put them in gym lockers.
It's good to find out what's moving on because it's a constantly moving target where people go to one watering hole until it's dry and then they move on to another area. So where are the hotspots that not just London, as much as we talk about London, that's because that's what appears in the journals, the press, on the news websites, but this happens in all the major cities. I've seen hundreds of Instagram reels, not so much about watches, but moped gangs just whizzing along, seeing somebody with a phone and just taking it off them and disappearing. So I was in Edinburgh a couple of days ago and it doesn't really happen that much there that I know of, but I was still super careful holding my phone down, putting my hand over the top of it and being aware of my surroundings. It's better to be scared than to be sorry.
South of France gets hit quite a lot because it's got, where people congregate, you've got those sort of wide open beachfront areas, and it's quite pedestrianised, slow moving traffic, but it's ideal for bikes, mopeds, motorbikes. And really there's a common theme that the places that it happens is where the wealth goes. People with wealth, people with the watches, they congregate in certain areas because of the nice restaurants, the nice bars, the place to be seen. So anywhere that you've got all of those high valuable things, the criminals know that and they're going to target there. So south of France, very wealthy, of course. Then the big cities, you mentioned you're going to Barcelona, the places people want to go with the nice nightlife and the nice bars and the nice shops and the money, the criminals know to go there, and they are quite seasonal. They move around different countries when the weather's at its best, when people are displaying their watches the most, wherever that may be. That's the time to target it. And of course, you get a shelf life as well. If you're doing it every night, you're going to get caught out and they're going to work out where you're residing. But if you just keep moving on, you can cause chaos in different cities until someone sort of catches on to where you're staying and who your gang is. As I say, I mentioned the word gang there. These people normally operate in crews, normally 2 or 3. Not many watch thieves are really brave enough to want to do it on their own because they know if they see that watch and about to have it off the wrist, they might be bigger than the person they're stealing it from, but they don't know what friends are watching or who's going to intervene. So in some ways they are cowards, and they only operate when they've got third eyes, and people looking out for them. So a good thing to look out for with these crews is they'll often communicate through headphones. Now, of course, commonly these days, they don't have wired ones like I'm using today. A lot of them are wireless Bluetooth headphones, quite often Apple, the distinctive white pod. But whatever pod it might be in their ear, what you notice quite a lot is they still want to have a sense of awareness around them. So they'll often just have one in to communicate with the other members of the crew.
Like me?
Yeah, exactly like that. So that is something to look out for. There's normally 2 or 3. You might be in a restaurant, and funnily enough, you've just come from a bar and the same 3 people that were in the bar with you are now sat at the table opposite you. And even though they're all sat together, they've got, earphones in because they're getting ready for when they're not together and they're about to do that robbery. So that's definitely something to look out for. And I know several examples of people that have picked up on that. and probably prevented themselves from getting robbed by seeing it before they left the restaurant.
I remember a story I told in the podcast a couple of times where I was down south and spotted a group of people at a table, and I just had a feeling. So I went to the toilet. This was during the day, very sunny outside. Went to the toilet, put my watch in my sock, came out, and they'd gone. But thinking that way, again, it saves you being a victim. And it means, unfortunately, for the next person, it's not you, it will be them. But something else I wanted to talk about and mention, again, it's a repeat, but it's good to repeat these kind of mantras. If you're wearing a watch that's worth 10 grand on the open market, you're walking around with £10,000 sellotape to your wrist. Think about it that way, because that's what a thief will see. Doesn't matter if it's a watch, doesn't matter if it's 10 grand and pound notes there. That's the way they look at it.
You're right. And the criminal, that's exactly what he thinks. The money is on your wrist. He doesn't care if you are a big lad, a small lady, whatever. They don't care. All they are seeing is they don't look at the victim, they look at the watch. So that's why everybody has to be careful about what they're wearing, when they're wearing it. And as you just said there, if for something makes you uncomfortable, take it off, put it in a pocket, put it in like your sock, anywhere where you can put it out of display, and then make it visible. I've got nothing on my wrist here, so I've got nothing. So they've sort of like diffused that threat level straight down to make themselves a potential target.
I remember you said on a previous show, people at the bar putting their hand up to get the attention of the bar person. That's just signalling what you're wearing, so bring it down the wrist, bring the sleeve up. Let's move on to something else, and that is the buying and selling. We've discussed many times in previous shows about the current trends of things to watch out for, but that's a constantly moving target as well. What are the latest scams that people should be aware of out there, buying and selling watches?
I think the buying and selling just now, we've seen this, like at the moment, we haven't had too many in the way of like fraudulent purchases like we spoke about before. That was a big thing, like people with potentially giving bank details and then getting their money sort of like taken out of their accounts and things to try to do if you were buying from somebody privately. That was a big thing. And then people arranging to go around to people's houses on Facebook Marketplace was very popular for that a while ago. That seems to have completely dried up. I think the fact with now the eBay do a lot of checking on the watches before something's sold. I think people are buying a lot more on that platform now, Ricky, because they're more comfortable, because the watch gets checked before it gets sent out. And then if it does then turn out to be fake or whatever, they've got almost like a guarantee back with eBay for right to sort of like have a refund. So those ones, the fraud side of stuff seems to be massively dying down. Again, it's just people turning up at predominantly, I would say, pawnbrokers and your sort of like your grey market second-hand dealers that are trying to come in with like a bit of almost like Frankenstein watches, a different bezel on a watch. That seems to be the only sort of popular scams now, because people can make watches look so realistic and it's very hard to tell. That's, I would say, the main ones just now, because I can't think of anything else that's really prominent just now. Can you, Tom?
No, I think like you say, because cloned or fake watches look so similar to the real ones now, people are able to get those and make their money just by scamming people by selling one of those on. And because they're so close and so accurate, people don't realize for some time, and it takes it to be sort of fed back into the industry or in the trade or for repair before people know, and by that time it's too late. I think there are more watches out there where the basis of it might be a semi-decent watch, but they try and make it into a different, more valuable model, and then if you get sold that at the more valuable model price, you're still getting ripped off, aren't you? Even if the base of it is the original brand.
This is all good news, and I'm liking the fact that things seem to be getting better and better out there. You mentioned eBay. Obviously, we've got a great relationship with the folks there. And last year, since our last recording, I was moving house and sold quite a few watches. I sold my white gold Daytona on eBay, and as much as we're good friends with them, we've had them on the show and we believe in what they tell us, see, when you're putting your own watch and your own money on the line, it was a little bit scary. but I'm happy to report, and have done, that it went absolutely flawlessly. You're right, it goes to their authentication centre. That's where they've got super high resolution, all kinds of cameras, microscopes, everything from the moment it arrives is tagged, it's sealed, it goes through a conveyor system. They look inside, they make sure the movement is matched to the case, that's matched to the bezel, that's matched to everything. And there are those background checks. They look after you, because if something goes wrong, like you rightly said, they are the ones that will cover the damage. They'll be the ones that refund you or whatever, even until it gets to the person that's buying it. So the person that buys it can't turn around and say, oh, the person that dropped it off from the DPD or DHL, it wasn't in the box. You don't have those worries. And I think that the biggest thing last year was the fact eBay took away the fees. So if you're selling a watch that's over a couple of grand, you get all this built-in help, and there is no downside to it at all. You'd actually be stupid not to use that service.
Yeah, I've got to say, because years ago, I was always very sort of like worried about when you saw some watches on eBay. Like I've got one of my good friends back in Aberdeen. He got right into eBay buying watches, and I was like, oh, be careful. And he always took the risk, and I was like, oh God, you never know what you're going to get sometimes, because you hear the bad stories. But now, I think everybody's saying just what you said. It's quite a smooth, really well organized platform now, especially when it comes to watches. So it's very, it's good news for confidence for people that are happy to go out and buy their watches now. And it just gives that little bit of extra reassurance. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I've heard good reviews about eBay sales in recent years as well. So I think they've definitely got their act together, because it's in their interests, and people know they can rely on a company to work like that more people are going to use it.
So if you're telling us that watch crime is on the way down, are you guys just playing darts more? What are you up to?
No, we're still very busy. As I said, there's a lot of jobs out there, operations with the watches. We work a lot with the units at the Central London and Westminster, with those guys there, helping them out, because they do see a lot of crimes that come in. Obviously, there's still a lot, Ricky, that there are tourists that come in that sometimes don't report until they get back from their holiday out of the country. So there are still crimes happening. We're not saying there isn't, because there are, and some of the ones that are happening are obviously for the high value watches. So it's just a case now where we're constantly, I think we're using different tactics, not just like going out there and being proactive. There's a lot of reactive work gets done, not just targeting the areas once you identify them, but there's a lot more analytical work and behind the scenes work gets done by researchers and that, to pinpoint the areas, to try to identify people from intelligence we've got. There's a huge amount goes into it now, not just a case of, let's go out and walk and see if we can see somebody that looks like they're going to go and pull somebody's watch off their wrist. So there's a lot of operations go in, and I think we've mentioned it before. When we go out and do these operations to help, the logistics and the manpower that goes into it is quite it's resource intensive. You've got a team of officers, you've got people that are obviously having to help with observations, you've got people looking out for the targets, and then you've got to be all in the right place at the right time. So if something happens, to get in there to try to catch these guys, because you'll get no better evidence than catching somebody once they're physically committing that crime, because it's there. It's great when you've got a bit of CCTV and you can take statements and go back and conduct a reactive inquiry, but catching them in the act is the best thing. And that is the way that there's almost no outer for them when they go to court. So there's nothing they can really say, because you can't say, I accidentally just jumped in and pulled it off. There's not really much you can say when the evidence has been completely captured by the police watching them direct. So yeah, we have been busy and still are, and I can see we're going to be like this for the duration of this summer, and we're going to be out there every week. I can assure the people listening, especially in London where we are. I can't speak for other forces surrounding the cities, but we're going to be doing this because robbery and the watch crime has become a big priority for the Met this summer.
I've seen the videos over the years. God, there was even the BBC thing that we reported on maybe a year and a half ago. And watching your teams in operation, People might think it's quite easy. Oh, you just walk down the road and you're looking out for gangs, you're doing this. But when you've got people on the street who are running after or even are the targets when you guys are the sheep and you're waiting for the wolves to attack, I've seen folks rolling around, getting scuffed, scratched, donked on the head. It's crazy, and you put yourself in the firing line for all that stuff, so that's to be commended. And as I say, it's good news that things are on the way down, but they can quite as easily ramp back up again when people think, the public aren't quite as aware, a little bit of lulled into a false sense of security, and then wham, you're suddenly the victim again.
I think we've said it before on the show, it goes in little waves. So when it's cold and it's dark and stuff, winter, and there's less people out and about, it's natural that it falls down and you think, oh, it's great, there's nobody out there doing it. But as Tom said, now, as the weather gets better, as the nights get longer and more people are coming out, it does pick up again because there's more people out and about, feeling relaxed and happy to go out, wearing their watches. So there's more chance of an offence taking place. So that's why we've got to be there or be in areas to try to make sure that there is a presence there to discourage any of that sort of behaviour and try and identify people that are out committing. So yeah, you can never rest on your laurels thinking, oh, it's gone with our, that's great, we don't need to worry about that problem now, because it comes back to bite you quicker than you think, because that's watches all over. It goes in phases, doesn't it?
I think when it's sunny like this as well, even when you're in your vehicle, because when the sun comes out and the convertible roofs go down, and even if you haven't got the convertible roof, the windows are open. People were driving around London, and it's quite heavily pedestrianised, traffic slow. So, you're going down one of the luxury retail streets, Oxford, Regent, Bond Street, Mount Street, windows down, roof down, and arm out at the side. And we had one the other day where a thief's come up to someone who's got their hands over the side of the car, the roof down, and they've had it off them while they're sat in their car. And even when people are in restaurants, if you're sat in the window, you wouldn't think about it. You want a nice window view, but then you can see out, people can see in. And if your watch is there, you feel safe when you're in a building, you're in a car. But these thieves will just wait and they'll just take their moment, and that's when they'll strike.
Well, I wear my watch on my left hand, so I'm okay driving about with the window down. And we don't have much sunlight in Scotland, so that's one of the worries I don't have to think about. Well, let's talk about something else that we've discussed as well. It's good to do a little bit of repetition, and that was home invasions, people being followed, break-ins at home. We talked on the last show because somebody quite close, somebody that comes to Red Bar up in Glasgow, he had a gang come into his house and it ended up in the papers. It was across the national press. They broke in, they held a knife against his son's throat and said, "We want you to empty your safe." Nobody wants that kind of threat.
I know you spoke about that before, Ricky. What we had down in London was, it was more a case of people targeting people for the gold jewellery, like the Asian community that have lots of gold and have it for events such as weddings and all sorts of celebrations. So they were targeting areas where they knew there'd be a lot of people there that carried a lot of that. Yes, we will get the break-ins. As you've probably seen with us, it's a lot of the sports people or people that are a high profile that potentially, because of their social media platform or whatever, people tend to know where they might be, they get looked at. But we fortunately haven't had a rise in sort of like the burglaries where the people going in for the safes and things like that. We get that, but it's more from retail premises for safes, for maybe for cash. So although that's still not a good thing, but for the home side of things, it has had a decrease for us in that respect, which is good, because I think people are more aware of their home security. What with alarms, everybody's just about got a Ring doorbell or some sort of video camera now. That has helped. And then people as well, I think people use the likes of Metro Bank and places like that where you can get a little safety deposit box for £20-30 a month. Lots of people, they've become really popular. You hear a lot of people saying that because obviously home insurance has gone through the roof for everybody. So lots of people are still using them. And I do speak to people when you deal with sort of victims, and they all say, yeah, they're taking lots of different steps now to protect their stuff, and a lot of people don't take it home. They leave it elsewhere.
I think it's worth mentioning with the safety deposit boxes, obviously they are a good idea in many ways, but what you have to be aware of again is your surroundings. Thieves will know where safety deposit boxes are. I can think of several high profile ones in London I won't name. And I know that when people have been taking their watches in bulk to put them into those safety deposit boxes, that's when they've been targeted. So again, once it's in there, it's great, it's safe, but the transitioning between where you're taking it from to putting it in there, that's like the high risk part of it. So that needs to be borne in mind. The other thing that Kev mentioned there was a lot of high profile athletes and celebrities are obviously posting on social media. And if they're really high profile, people know they are. The classic example is a footballer who's playing abroad. So they know they're watching him on the TV. He can't be at home in his house. And we all know about the ones where they've been targeted there. There's been other examples, other sports professionals and celebrities. But I think the other thing to make clear is most people have a social media presence. People are online a lot with their Facebook, with their Instagram. And even if you're not a multi-millionaire sports person, if you've got nice things and you're posting them on there and you're letting people know what you've got and where you live and what car you've got, for a thief that wants that item, it's quite easy for them to put all that together and make you a target. So a bit like we say, be careful what you wear, be careful what watch you choose. You really need to look into what you're sharing with others, people you don't necessarily know that can see a lot about you and do their own research and cause problems for you.
The gentleman I talked about locally who had his house invaded, he was telling me it's probably down to the fact on Instagram he was posting his new Rolex and his collection and bits and bobs, and you are just advertising to people that might have bad ill thoughts of what they're going to do in the future. I'm a huge proponent of safety deposit boxes ever since I got an insurance quote a couple of years ago for my small collection at the time. And I was told it would be around about £4,500 to £5,000 per year to insure my collection, whereas a safety deposit box was £450 per year, and I could put all my stuff there. And like you said, and it's very similar to the advice you've given in the past for people going to buy watches from ADs, walking in with nothing, coming out with a bag that says brand name on the side, you're making yourself look like a victim. You're highlighting and signalling to people that might be watching, and there are people watching, because like we've said before, if somebody can make £5,000, £10,000, £20,000 by following you around for 8 hours, that's a huge payday for somebody. So think with that mentality. Think you've got 10 grand strapped to the wrist. Think that a payday for somebody watching you go to a car park, following you home, if they can walk away with 10 grand, that's worth it in their eyes.
I know, picking up on what Tom said, because I know he personally knows a person who went to a very high-end venue in London with safety deposit boxes, and they were watched as they put their items in the car. They were taken out. You've just got to be careful. And one of the other things I was, when you asked Ricky about trends, one thing that Tom and I have seen is what's been done recently is people coming into London, especially at places like St Pancras and the Eurostar and the big train stations. There's been a lot of recent it's bag thefts. Now, not just for jewellery, but I personally dealt with a case where a very wealthy family came up and they were followed to their car with their chauffeur. He put their bags and everything in the boot. It was an old vintage vehicle. So, because when I watched the footage, I was thinking, well, why hasn't the alarms gone off? Why is he not stopping? When they popped the boot, got in and just got lucky, pulled out a case, and the value of what they had was exceptional, and that they just got lucky, got the right bag, could have got anything as the car moved off. That was at one train station. There was a couple at King's Cross, and I think we saw about a month ago that the guy was convicted who stole Jensen Button's wife's bag. They came in off the Eurostar, and there was a bag with a lot of jewellery and quite a high value there. So there are other things and other places to be mindful of, not just when you're out and about, for the night out. But when you're coming into these stations, always, if you've got something with value, and keep it, rather than, I'll just give it to the driver, they'll put it in the boot, because they make sure you're okay and get into the van and then, or the car, and then they take their sort of eyes off the boot or whatever the bag may be for a matter of seconds, and it's so quick to pick it up. And these guys will distract taxi drivers and things that are right behind them. They will engage in conversation to ask, oh, can you go here? Can you go there? No intention of getting a taxi, just to put a block in so their mate goes in and he picks up the bag and they just walk off as if it's normal. So that's another thing to get across to people. If you are going to be coming down and taking valuables in your bags into train stations and things, make sure they're close to you. You don't leave them, and you don't leave your bag. If you leave anything unlocked or unattended anywhere, somebody's going to take it. That's just sadly, it's the way of the world in certain places, and especially in big cities like London.
Kevin, I think I'm right in saying that the bag thefts like that, they normally work in a crew as well, like we've mentioned with the watch thefts, and there's some quite interesting clips out there of how they operate.
And again, I would describe them as tourist thieves that come in to do it. We've had convictions with South Americans, North Africans, people that come in and out of the country, and then they'll, as you say, they'll move, and Tom Fink said it earlier on, then they'll move into Europe, and then because they don't want to be committing too many, bringing themselves to notice, they go off and come back. And these guys are masters at changing identity, clothing, their appearance. It'll be a hat, it'll be a goat beard, then it'll shave, then it'll be a moustache, then it'll be something else, the hairstyle. They're really good at changing their sort of profile. They, as we say in the police, you dress up to dress down to fit into certain areas. And these guys do it very well, because I'd say at train stations especially, you're thinking about, oh, am I getting picked up? Where's my train? Where am I doing? Your concentration isn't focused on what you've got with you. It's more about where you're going or who's picking you up. So it's in those moments when you're vulnerable.
As focused as you are on getting your train, they are focused on getting your bag or your watch. I think common distractions with these sort of teams, if you're in a vehicle, they'll stab a knife into your wheel and give you a puncture, and then you're not driving off, and then they'll point out that puncture to you as well, and then whilst they're pointing that out to you, they'll probably throw some cash on the floor, £5 notes, £10 notes, telling you you've dropped it, so that'll make you turn your head the other way, and then there'll be someone walking the other way picking up your briefcase whilst you're looking at the money that you're not sure if you've dropped. Other things they do, they squirt like ketchup. They have sachets of ketchup that they pick up in restaurants. They'll squirt ketchup on you. They'll tell you that they'll try and help wipe it down from you, and then someone else is taking your bag. And you think these people are being well-meaning, pointing stuff out to you, and that's enough for the 2-3 others to take everything you've got away. So really be aware, if a stranger's coming up to you and being too helpful, it probably sadly is too good to be true. So just be instantly aware that might be what's happening to you.
Yeah, you said it earlier, Ricky. Don't trust anyone. Like you said it, like you've got to be mindful of everyone that you don't know. So just treat them as untrustworthy. I think you said it right at the start.
It's something to live by. And I was walking through Edinburgh 2 days ago, protecting my phone from everybody that was around me. It didn't matter who they were, age, size, height, whatever it was, because I just don't want to become the victim. And you talk about distraction techniques, maybe not so much in the UK, but I remember seeing some video clips over in America, maybe in Vegas, where they were using high-class women of the night, shall we say, to maybe get in front of gentlemen to distract them with their gaze, and then their valuables were taken away from them. So yeah, every single thing, if there's a distraction, it's going to move your brain into something else when someone else is dipping your pocket or taking stuff off your wrist. And the last thing I want to remind people, and there'll be some links in the show notes, there was a great TV show in the UK called The Real Hustle. And the guys that were involved in that, one of them sounded a bit like you, funnily enough. He must have been from Scotland. And they were just masters. Some of it might have been staged, some of it may have been actors, but when they were actually doing these routines, it showed you how simple it was for someone to shake your hand or touch the side of your wrist, and your watch was just off and gone. And these guys practice day in, day out with this kind of thing.
I actually worked on that TV show. I actually was a talking head for that and saw some of the scams that they did. And they were very good at it. And they had their own actors that would act them out and show how it was done really well, and then break it all down, didn't they?
Did you ever meet Jess?
No, we filmed in different studios, so no, we weren't introduced. But on the shows, we're in it together. But I'm green screen with a backdrop of London Bridge, but I was just in an office somewhere, sadly.
That was a brilliant show, and you can find the episodes on YouTube. That's why I said in the show notes we'll get Miz to link some of them. It was entertainment, but it also put the cog spinning in the back of your head that if it can happen there that quickly, something similar could happen to me. And it's just been on your tippy toes all the time, because the moment that you relax, the moment you think it won't happen to you, is the moment you're down at the police station doing a report.
Yeah, I think it'd be quite interesting for that show to be recommissioned, because it was quite a few years ago, and the way technology's moved on, sadly, I think it'd be a lot easier to do a lot more things these days. And if they would highlight that to people, like we're trying to do a little bit in this podcast, I think it'd be really useful. And it was a very good cast as well.
It was a great cast, and I saw an article on a news website a couple of days ago about a gentleman in the UK believing he was in a relationship with Jennifer Aniston and she needed $200 because AI and deepfakes are so good nowadays. So yeah, I think we'll leave it on a high there, because we've taken up enough of your time. This is after hours. These guys are super busy. They've actually carved out a little bit of their own personal time to record this show with us, so massive thank you for that. If people are looking to find out more, do you guys have a portal with the Met Police where they can go and learn about this kind of thing?
Well, if they're in London, they can definitely look on the Met Police website, and then you can get links to crime prevention advice or anything. But if anybody wants to get in touch with Tom or I, anything to do with watch crime, because it is our favoured piece of thing that we like to do, they can always try and get in touch with us through the Met Police Flying Squad at Putney, and then we're more than willing to speak to anyone or give out any advice or speak to them about any problems that they may have, and helping them try to recover or investigate one of their crimes for them.
Yeah, you can dial in on 101 if you just want feedback of what's going on. There's social media team's pretty good now. There's Instagram, and there's accounts for the Met Police. They try and feedback on the stories we've been involved with, and give people advice on there. So yeah, have a look.
And just to finish up and take things full circle, these two guys here aren't just police officers. They're not just out there putting their necks in the line for you and your property. They're at watch shows. I've bumped into them a couple of times at the London Watch Show. Oh God, what was the other one? We've been at British Watchmakers Day. You've actually been wearing one of our limited editions. So as much as you're here in a professional capacity, you are part of the brethren. You are watch collectors and enthusiasts just like we are. So that's why people should listen to what you say. Thank you so much. It's taken a wee while to get this episode done due to some technical gremlins. That's also why Dave is not with us. But the information, it's invaluable. It never goes out of date. There's just a slight variation. It's like a reboot every year. And it's good to remind yourself of the things that we've talked about in the past. So if you even want more information, filling in all the gaps with previous scams and frauds that have been on the go, just in case they make a reoccurrence, go back through the back catalogue. We'll put some details in the show notes of that. But gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us, and we'll catch you again soon.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having us.